In this video I am going to show you how to replace the front shock absorbers on 2005 to 2015 Toyota Tacoma trucks. Park the truck on a flat surface. Set the emergency brake and place blocks in front and behind the rear wheels. Next, loosen the lug nuts that hold the front wheels using a 1/2-inch bar and a 21mm socket. Do not remove the wheel lug nuts yet, just loosen them. Raise the front of the truck to a suitable height using a hydraulic jack. Place 2 jack stands under the chassis for safety. Next, remove the lug nuts that hold the front wheels and proceed to remove the front wheels completely. Next, remove the bolt that holds the ABS sensor line retaining bracket using a ratchet and a 10mm socket. Next, remove the bolt that holds the brake line using a ratchet and a 12mm socket. Remove the lock that holds the brake line to the chassis using pliers. Next, remove the nut that connects the stabilizer bar arm using a ratchet and a 17mm socket. If necessary, use pliers to hold the ball joint on the inside. Remove the 2 screws that hold the stabilizer bar base to the chassis using a ratchet and a 14mm socket. You can leave the rear bolt loose to make reinstallation easier. Remove the 3 top nuts holding the shock absorber using a ratchet and a deep 14mm socket. Remove the lower bolt holding the shock absorber using a 19mm wrench, a ratchet, and a 19mm deep socket. Drive the bolt outward with a round chisel and hammer as shown in the picture to free it. Remove the lock that holds the upper ball joint nut and spindle by pulling outward. Loosen the nut that holds the upper ball joint using a ratchet and a 19mm socket. Release the upper ball joint from the steering knuckle with the help of a bar, and levering downwards, hit the steering knuckle with a copper hammer near where both parts join. Once the ball joint is free, remove the nut completely and separate the steering knuckle from the upper control arm. Pull the steering knuckle outward with your hands to create enough space to remove the shock absorber. Unhook the shock absorber from the bottom by pulling it outwards. Once it is free, pull it down to clear the upper studs that mount it and remove the shock absorber completely. Note, if the upper part of the shock absorber is stuck to the chassis, use a pry bar to separate it. Proceed to install the new shock absorber in the reverse order that the defective shock absorber was removed, making sure that the bolts and nuts are tightened to the correct torque specs described in your owner's manual. Place a hydraulic jack and a block of wood under the lower suspension arm as shown in the image and raise the jack to the proper height to reconnect the steering knuckle and upper ball joint more easily. Pull down on the upper control arm, install the nut and tighten it by hand. Once this step is done, remove the hydraulic jack and proceed to tighten the nut to the correct specs and install the rest of the components in the reverse order to which they were removed, ensuring that all bolts and nuts are tightened to the correct specifications. Proceed to replace the opposite side shock absorber in a similar manner. That's how simple it is to replace the front shock absorbers on 2005 to 2015 Toyota Tacoma trucks.